Today we're going to talking about the single sign-on, hybrid single sign-on scenarios between the customer premises and also the cloud providers. Now, first of all, single sign-on or federal single sign-on, they have three different methods to achieve. Number one is SIMON 2.0. SIMO, that's a security tokenized protocol, which is going to insert the XML level of the tokens in the user request. By insert that token, it can build up the two-way trustness between the identity provider to those service providers. So that is number one. Number two, there's OASIS, which is Open Authentication 2.0. Number three, there's OpenID Connect, which is very popular in the internet. If the user, already got credential or login ID from, let's say, Google, Facebook, we can using Facebook, Google's user credentials and trust them and import their data, credentials into our logins. Now, for today's topic, we're going to very focus on the first option, which is SIMON 2.0. So first of all, let's look at the SIMON 2.0. Now, this diagram actually shows us about the SIMON 2.0 Identity Federation Single Sign-On. So look at there's a corporate user, which is Bob. He tried to access some application, which is outside of his domain. This is how he did it. He tried to browse through the portal, and then the identity managers or provider were going to redirect the user request towards the IDP database. This IDP or user identification database, we're going to identify the user's role and try to mapping with the user's access with their roles. By doing so, they can also add up the user, the information in their queries. Now, the next one, which is then they can add up sign-in assertions. They assert the XML, and they insert this XML into the URLs. Now, by forward to the single sign-on endpoint, the endpoint, we're going to generate a security token, and this temporary security token, which is credential, we're going to return back to the user. And so next time when the user sign in, they can sign in with this security token. Obviously, when they sign in with, when they see this token, they treated this as trusted. So through this way, a user, the trust domain, can build up the two-way trustness between its domain and also the external applications. SIMON 2.0 is very popular in the corporate identity management scenarios solutions, and it's widely used by the banks, investment bank, and to do the user authentication and authorizations. Now, let's have a look on how the SIMON 2.0 can work with Amazon, AWS, IAM roles. So this diagram gave you the information about how the user actually going to work between its premises domain towards the cloud environment or the AWS user authentications. So here we just swap the single sign-on. We just swap the single sign-on external single sign-on provider with IAM. And AWS IAM, we are going to come up with after they establish two-way trustness, it will come up with a token, and this token or credential we're going to give to the Bob. And in the URL access, that credential, we are going to keep that credentials. So when the Bob going to access the application, that credential we are going to be accepted by the applications. So this is an area when we work on those hybrid environments. Now, the third diagram, which just gave you the illustration about if the users working on the in the premises and they have the user rules, roles and groups defined in the Active Directory server, and Active Directory server can using the a product called AD connectors to build up the connectivity and the trust to the single sign-on services within the AWS. By building up the two-way trustness, they can further centralize, get the user permission to access to the application within the AWS in terms of workload, applications, services, and also towards external application as well. And those token and credential we're going to keep and manage by the AWS single sign-on. Again, this is just illustrate different user. They have different roles and they have different access to the applications. So based on their access roles, they will have different on a different application. They come up with different user credentials. So from here, we give you a view about how we're going to set up a hybrid federal single sign-on between the premises environment towards the cloud, let's say AWS, IAM, and then through the federal single sign-on, we can build up this streamlined single sign-on process between the existing premises towards the cloud. And the same scenario we're also going to apply not just for the AWS, but also for the Google and Microsoft Azure as well. Federal single sign-on is very important. It's built up the security foundation for the user management access and and also for the fire application access. So we're going to talk about the more detail in the later on chapters.